I want to be an Iron Man. I want to display that obnoxious 140.6 sticker on the back of my car. I want to bore you endlessly with stories of my training and getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I want to tattoo the Iron Man logo on a very discreetly obvious place on my body. What I want to talk to you about today are the real reasons why I want to do an Ironman. I want to share with you what it's going to take for me to actually get there. And then I want to give you a sense of what that experience actually is. First off, what is an Ironman? An Ironman is a triathlon that starts with a 2.4-mile swim, progresses to a 112-mile bike ride, and then finishes off with a 26.2-mile marathon run. This event is also called a 140.6, which is the cumulative total of the mileage of all three events. Now, it's not unreasonable for you to ask yourself at this point, why would somebody want to do that? For me, it's a matter of setting goals, a matter of achievement, but there's also something very specific that's gotten me to this point. You see, they told me that I couldn't do it. I have osteoarthritis in both my knees, which means I have very little cartilage left. So the doctors for years have told me, don't run, it's probably a bad idea. Well, I listened to that advice for a long time. And then I remember seeing a story on the television news. It was a story about a Marine who had just returned from Afghanistan, a Marine who had suffered horrendous wounds in an explosion. I picked up the story just as this Marine was coming across the finishing line after having completed an Ironman race. 16 hours and 55 minutes after he started that, he came across the finish line, which is 5 minutes short of the 17-hour cutoff you're allowed to have. What I saw in his eyes, the determination, the joy, the elation of having completed that, inspired me to think about things a little differently and drove me to think that maybe I really could do this. What's it going to take for me to be able to accomplish this? Well, over the course of the next 12 months, I'm going to ride about 8,000 miles on that bike. I'm going to climb the equivalent of Mount Everest 12 times over. I'm going to have to swim about 600 miles in the open water, avoiding jellyfish and creatures seen and unseen. I'm going to track about 1,000 miles on the pavement, and at the height of my training, I'm going to need to consume about 5,000 calories a day just to maintain my body weight. I know some of you are thinking, maybe this Ironman's not a bad thing, right? I want to share with you a little bit about what that experience is actually like. On race day, your alarm goes off at 3:30 in the morning. But it's not really necessary because nobody sleeps the night before an Ironman. At the race site, about 15 minutes before the gun goes off, I'll make my way down to the water, I'll jump in, and I'll join 3,000 of my closest friends and make our way towards the starting line. Imagine the chaos and the pandemonium that happens when that starting gun goes off. 3,000 athletes in this narrow channel of water all trying to make forward progress. You're swimming on top of people, you're pulling them aside, you're grabbing arms and legs, anything you can do to make that forward progress. This is the point where you understand that it's not just about being able to finish 2.4 miles of swimming, but you have to have the strength and fortitude to not get flushed out the back right at the start of the race. There's a great deal of joy and relief that happens when I finish the swim, as I recognize at that point, I'm probably not going to die that day. On the bike and on the run, you can stop and pull over and you can rest whenever you need to. It's not really an option for you in the swim. The first thing that I do once I get on the bike is I need to take in more food and more fuel, more liquids. The thing that could kill you fastest in a triathlon is to become dehydrated, right? And once you become dehydrated, your day is essentially over. Now, I'll finish the bike portion of this event about 8 or 9 hours into the day. I'll rack the bike, grab my shoes, and start out on my run. Now, I'm as slow as a turtle going up a grassy knoll when it comes to running, so my goal is just going to be to keep moving. I do a lot of math stuff in my head, right? The time, the distance, the cadence, anything to keep my mind off the fact that I have X number of miles still left to go. I will stop at every aid station along the way and grab more food and more liquid and more fuel, whatever I can get a hold of. But there will come a time when your body says, no mas, I can't do this anymore. And that's the point in time under which this event becomes much more mental than it becomes physical. I can't really explain to you what happens when you actually get to the finish line. You actually see the finish line, the lights and the crowds. All that exhaustion just drains from your body. And that last little reserve of energy you have transfers directly to your legs and allows you the opportunity to run through that last couple hundred yards of the chute until you get across the finish line and they proclaim across the microphone to everybody there, Kevin Connors, you are an Ironman. And that's where we go to. Now, I've explained a little bit about sort of the how and the what and the why of an Ironman. So you probably all have a sense in your mind about the kind of person it takes in order to be able to do these kinds of things. I want to take my last couple moments to dispel a couple of those misperceptions. Notwithstanding the Marine I talked about earlier, finishing an Ironman is much more about commitment than it is about courage, much more about tenacity than it is about talent. And for me, it's much more about the accomplishment than it is the accolades. But even with that being said, I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you my new tattoo sometime later on next year.